Welcome to the FemiNinja Project. I am your host, Cheryl I Love, middle-aged ninja, hiding in plain sight, dedicated to restoring human dignity one person at a time and helping you unleash your personal power. Discover that it's possible to look like a woman, act like a lady, move like a ninja, and think like a warrior. And remember, men are always welcome on the FemiNinja Project. I have a really wonderful guest with me today. Her name is Gina Heumann. So welcome to the show, Gina.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming on this really cold day.
I'm excited to be here.
You must be, because you came in quite the snowstorm, although it looks like it's clearing up now. So you have such a fascinating story. You're a wife, you're a business owner. You like to tell people that you drink wine professionally. That's what you do for a living.
That is correct. Best job ever.
I guess it is. And it gives you an awful lot of flexibility.
Yes.
And you need that flexibility because you're also a mom of 2 young boys. Mm-hmm. So just tell us a little bit about your family and about your boys.
Okay. This is not where I plan to be in life. As John Lennon says, life is what happens when you make other plans. Mm-hmm. I thought I would be one of those Sex and the City girls with girlfriends, and I would travel, and I would have this huge closet full of designer shoes, and I wouldn't be married. And then I met my husband. So on our first date, I actually knew that was it. The plan was out the window.
Wow.
But I thought I could still probably get the closet full of designer shoes.
Of course.
Maybe.
Of course.
I'm still working on that. And then one day I woke up at like 28 and a half and I decided I needed a baby. Mm-hmm. My mom was 22 when she had me, so I thought, oh my God, I'm getting too old already. I better do this quickly. So my husband and I planned a trip to Italy, and of course, we would conceive our child there.
Of course.
In the most romantic place on earth. Mm-hmm. Yeah. After 4 years of infertility treatments, in vitro and drugs and medication and shots and everything, we finally came to the conclusion that we were meant to adopt.
Okay. And I take it you were not in Italy that entire time.
No, just 10 days.
Just wanted to clarify.
I'm a planner. I thought this is my plan. It's going to work.
Mm-hmm. So what's that saying when man plans? Or no, God laughs? Yeah, man plans, God laughs.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so I guess he was laughing at you.
He was, yeah.
So what did you do about it?
We went to get our 3rd round of in vitro. We actually had what they called a warranty plan. So 3 rounds of in vitro for one package deal. Uh-huh. If it works, you're out the money. If it doesn't work, after 3 rounds, you get a percentage of it back. Mm-hmm. So it was kind of a lower risk. So on after our 2nd round didn't work, I came in for the 3rd round, and the doctors and the nurses all had this look on their face, and I just knew something was wrong. And they said, we've been talking, and you're a mess. Like, I was literally a lunatic at that point.
Okay.
Hormonal, I was fat, I was angry, I was just a mess. And they said, we can't proceed with the 3rd round until you go to some therapy and take 6 months off. Oh. So they sent me to a therapist that specializes in infertility. Mm-hmm. She did EMDR, which is eye movement desensitization or something. They supposedly walk you through different things while your eyes are moving. Like, it's supposed to mimic REM sleep. Mm-hmm. And that's apparently where you process all your emotions. Mm-hmm. So one meeting with this woman, EMDR, she had me imagine what I was going to do with these drugs. She said, where do you keep them? I said, in the bathroom. She said, okay, imagine yourself walking to the bathroom. Now pick up the thing of drugs. She said, what are you going to do with it? I said, I'm walking over the balcony and I'm throwing it off. Mm-hmm. And as soon as I was done, I was like, okay, I'm done. We're ready to adopt.
Wow.
My husband wasn't quite there. So he said, go ahead and start, investigating. But I'm not quite there yet.
So how old were you at this point then?
I was like 31, 32, something like that.
And when you mentioned that, it was kind of a lower risk because, after 3 tries, then you do get some money back. So it's lower risk as far as the financial investment, but as far as the emotional investment was something that I was thinking of that, that really takes its wear and tear. It takes its toll on you.
I don't think a lot of people have any idea how awful it is to continue trying to get. I mean, it sounds fun at first, and it is fun at first.
Well, especially in Italy.
Yeah, until your mother-in-law starts calling and saying, "Hey, by the way, how often are you having sex? Because I'm a nurse for an OBGYN, and I can maybe give you some advice." And I was like, "Oh my God, this is not fun anymore."
I don't know if I could imagine anything more uncomfortable than that.
Yep, and she flew out for all my treatments and everything, so...
Oh God. Okay. So
she's really supportive. I love her, but
still,
it is very odd.
Yeah, it's a little close. A little close for comfort. So was that one of the reasons why you were such a mess? Was just with the testing and going through that kind of emotional trauma and even physical trauma, I would imagine.
Yeah, I mean, every single month there is a buildup of you have to have hope and you have to think this is it and we're going to get there. And then every month when it doesn't work, you just come crashing down and the tears just don't stop flowing and you just don't understand why all my friends are getting pregnant from like a shot of tequila. So it's just not fair.
Yeah, no.
And, I was at the age where I was invited to baby showers every other weekend. And so then it just drains your energy and your emotion. And I was a mess.
I couldn't imagine going through that roller coaster because it's almost like a repetition. It's, here comes the next bump and the next bump and the next one. And it's just like Groundhog Day all over again.
Yeah. Yeah, very much so.
Ugh.
And, my husband had a little more of an issue with, I'm not passing on the family genes. So that was, we had to reconcile that. But it's funny because he had me start the research process. So we started with China because we had some friends who had adopted a little girl from China. And they got their baby the week before Christmas.
Aww.
So all of us and all the people from the office and all of their friends and neighbors and family, we all organized this party to go to the airport with big welcome signs.
Aww.
And the news, I think there were like 23 babies on their flight that year. And so the flight came in and all these people are at the airport and the news crew got word of this because it's before Christmas. It's a heartwarming story. Our friends had the biggest group and we were all following them back to their house for pizza. And so after being a part of that and seeing how just amazing it was to welcome a baby from another country, I was so excited about that. So we looked into China, but we kind of wanted a boy. Then we went to Russia, but we kind of wanted, we thought we wanted a kid that looked like us. We're both Caucasian. But we don't look anything alike. My husband has darker skin and jet black hair. Now he has no hair, but
yeah, I know. I was scratching my head going, I don't remember jet black hair. I remember a very good looking man who was very kind of soft spoken and very zen.
And very zen and bald.
And bald, yeah.
Yes. So anyway, we didn't look anything like each other, so we had no idea what our baby would look like. But we started with Russia, and then the more we did research, I thought, if I'm going to adopt a baby, I want to also adopt their culture. And I just wasn't interested in Russian culture. I mean, I have nothing against it, but it just wasn't for me. And my husband had a coworker who had 3 kids from Guatemala, and she invited us over for dinner, her and her partner. And all the 3 of those kids were just beautiful. And I just loved them. And I was president of Spanish Club. And then I was president of Spanish Honor Society. I don't speak it very well anymore, but I was so into it back then. I love the colorful tapestries. I love the artwork. I love the music. I love a margarita. I was like, I think Guatemala's it. And then my husband started thinking, well, we could get a kid with soccer skills there. So that was kind of our thought process.
He's so practical.
We zeroed in on Guatemala and we absolutely, just embraced the culture. So we went to we went to a couple agencies that had Guatemala. We decided on a smaller agency. We really liked them a lot. And they had a form. It was like 1 page just a brief, check the box. Do you want a boy or a girl? Do you want this or that? You will be my agency, and you sign your name. So it was one sheet. So my husband says, well, I'm not quite ready, but it's going to take a while, so I'll get there. He says, go ahead and fax that thing in. So I get to work, and before we had internet.
Yeah, that's right. That was a long time
Faxed it
ago.
in. Yep, I faxed it in, and same day, this is Monday, same day I'm leaving the office. It's about 5:00. I have my purse on my arm, and I'm leaving my cubicle, and the phone rings. And I thought, oh God, I hope it's not a client or I'm going to be stuck here all day. So I answer the phone, and it's the lady from the agency, and she says, hey, it's Sarah from the agency. I just wanted to let you know we got your little form. We're excited that we're going to work with you. I've already sent your requirements down to our contact in Guatemala. And would you believe they saw a perfect baby boy for you this morning?
Oh my.
And yeah, so we thought it was going to be a long process. It was going to take 4 to 6 months before we even were able to get a baby.
Well, that's what you hear all the time with adoption. It takes forever.
Yeah, we just got
It took
super
you,
lucky.
What, 48 hours?
Not even. Like we faxed in the form 8 hours later. We had a baby picture coming. So she says, well, I'll send you all the stats in your email, she said, but I think it's going to be tomorrow before I get a picture. And I said, okay. So I called my husband, and I said, you're not going to believe this. They have a baby for us. He goes, well, don't get too excited yet. Let's wait and see what happens. I said, okay. So the next day, I'm waiting for this picture to come, and he's at a convention. So he's not even with me, and this is before we all had,
those
smartphones.
phones.
Yeah, so we had to actually be together at a computer looking at this baby together. So he says, well, I'll tell you what, you look at it and, call me and let me know, and then when I get home, we'll make a decision. I said, okay. So next morning, this, email comes through, and I see this beautiful baby, and I'm bawling at my desk, and I call my husband, and I said, I'm looking at a picture of our baby. And he said, Gina, take your heart out of the equation. Just look at it with your brain, and is it a baby or is it our baby? I said, it's our baby. He says,
no, were you at work when?
Yeah.
Okay.
He said, and I had to get through the whole day without telling anyone either, because I didn't want to tell people that we were doing this until it was.
So they thought you were just crying at your computer for.
Yeah, well, I was in a corner, so they didn't see. And then I had to hold it together the rest of the day and pretend everything was normal. But my husband called, came home from work that day, and we got onto our, AOL computer and slow dial-up connection, and this baby picture finally comes through, and he looked at it and he said, oh my God, I'm a dad. And that was it. So he was on board as soon as he saw that picture. And then, because we still had to do so much work, I mean, we had to go through medical exams and get financial statements, and we had to have friends write us letters of recommendation, and we had to have a home study where, of course, I baked cookies to prove I would be a good mom.
Of course. What kind did you bake?
I think chocolate chip. I don't remember. So we went through all this effort, and we actually got all of that stuff done in 2 weeks. We had everything off to the consulate in 2 weeks.
Wow.
It was amazingly fast. I think it was a record.
Wow.
Because once we saw his picture, we just needed to get him home.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then...
And it's almost like if you're not with him, it's time away from your child.
Exactly. And then we spent... Well, then we had to go through 2 different court systems in Guatemala to make it final. So we knew it was still going to be several months. They said probably 3 or 4 months. And in that time, I got his picture, and I decided we couldn't live on the 31st floor downtown anymore. We had to move to a house. So we put our house up, or our condo up for sale. We bought a house. We were getting super close at the beginning of September 2001. And then 9/11 happened.
Yeah, that pesky 911.
And it interfered with all of our plans. Nobody wanted to live on the 31st floor of a condo building. And so it was hard to sell our house. And we'd already bought another house. We were trying to figure out how we were going to pay 2 mortgages.
Oh, jeez.
And then Guatemala decided perhaps the U.S. is not the safest place to send babies. So they closed for a little while till they could investigate the situation. And so it delayed us.
So was that another letdown?
Yeah.
Both you and your husband must have been, it was like you were being dropped from the 31st floor.
Exactly.
See, it's almost like I was there.
Yeah, so we just had to hold it together, and eventually the house sold, and December 9th we went to get our new baby.
Okay, so September, October, November, December. Okay,
so it was delayed, but
but not as so that was kind of like what you would expect to wait for to get a child. So,
I know, but when you see his picture,
and then
there's uncertainty, and you're like, oh my God, but I'm already in love with this baby.
I know. So then, what was it like when you brought him home?
Oh my God, he was the easiest baby. Mm-hmm. We had, we were able to send care packages to the foster family.
Okay.
And we're actually still friends with them on Facebook.
And how old is he now?
He's 17.
Wow, okay. And what's his name? I can't remember.
His name is Landry.
Landry, that's right. Okay.
So we were able to send care packages back and forth to the foster family, and we did a ton of research. So I made sure that we had slept with everything, so it had our scent on it. We sent him like a stuffed animal, and we sent him a blankie, and we sent him some clothes, and it all had our scent on it. And then we got those picture frames where you can record a message. Mm-hmm. So we got a daddy frame and a mommy frame. Mm-hmm. And we wrote a letter, and we had it translated, and we asked them, we said, okay, well, we've already decided his name's going to be Landry. If you could start calling him by his new name, that would be great. If you could play these picture frames for him, we want him to start getting to know our voice.
And now, how old was he?
He was, he was 2 weeks when we got his referral. He was 6 months when he came home. So he was a little baby.
Wow.
So they told us they were playing those picture frames every single day, multiple times a day. And when we got him, he was sound asleep, and we were talking to the foster family, and they handed him to me. I was holding him, and I just, oh my God, he was so cute and so small. And the foster mom, when he started waking up, he got fussy because he was in a stranger's hands. Right. Mm-hmm. So the foster mom says, talk to him in the same voice you used on the picture frame. And I said, okay. So I said, hi, Landry, it's your new mommy. And he smiled, and he reached for me. It was the coolest thing ever.
Oh, I'm getting chills. Oh, my goodness.
So it was really instant. And he was such an easy baby. Mm-hmm. He was he was delayed language-wise because he'd heard Spanish for the first 6 months. Mm-hmm. Apparently, you are still learning language, even though you're not speaking at that age. So his language was a little delayed, but we started doing baby sign language with him when he got home, and he picked that up super fast. He was eager to communicate. So like I would take him to the zoo, and he would point to animals, and then he'd go, and he'd hold out his hand. And I was like, I don't know the sign for zebra. So I actually had to go to the bookstore and buy the ASL dictionary because he wanted to know what everything was. He wanted to know what the sign was for everything. And then he eventually started talking around 2, I think. Mm-hmm. So.
Wow. So then at what point did you decide you wanted another one?
So, the intent was if we were going to get pregnant, we were just going to do this once. Mm-hmm. And I kind of had hoped like, oh, maybe we'll just get twins and we'll have it done. We'll be over with. Mm-hmm. We'll have whatever, one of each, and we'll be done. And then when we decided to adopt, it suddenly became more important to me that he have a sibling, because I'm like, his skin color is different. His background is different. Mm-hmm. His culture is different. I want him to have a buddy. Mm-hmm. So I was the one that kind of pushed for the second one. My husband reminds me of that. Not anymore. But when we were going through some really challenging times, he was like, oh, you're the one that wanted a second one. So yeah, we just, I guess Landry was about 2.5 when we decided we'll start the process again, or maybe 3. Mm-hmm. And so we had moved. We were now in Chicago, and we decided to go through the process again. So the rules in Illinois were a little different than when we lived in Minnesota. And we had to become licensed foster family first, and then they wouldn't give us a referral until we were done with we had all the paperwork in and everything was ready. So it still went pretty quickly. He was still about 6 months when he came home. Mm-hmm. But it just took us longer before we actually got his referral. I think his process took maybe 3 months longer.
Mm-hmm.
So
when did you realize that this baby was a lot different and that this experience with your second child was going to be a little bit more challenging than Landry was?
immediately. Yes,
Okay.
we noticed immediately. We looking back on it now, I should have seen signs, but I didn't know what I was looking for back then.
Okay.
Like he didn't smile too much in the pictures, and you know, like I noticed he didn't make a lot of eye contact back then. But what we really noticed is he was super fussy. He couldn't settle down. He was reaching for food. And he was 6 months. He would be sitting on our lap and he would be like diving across the table for food.
Oh.
And he was very underweight. So yeah, I think he was neglected. And then like the planets had to align before he would fall asleep. And people ask me like, how old was he when he slept through the night? He was 11.
Oh, God.
And for 3.5 years, he would be up like 5 or 6 times a night. It wasn't just once or twice.
Wow.
Yeah. So it was a lot. He would throw 4-hour meltdown tantrums.
Wow.
He
Just
would,
in the middle of the night in his crib, like wake up in the middle
oh
of the
no,
night? and do that,
if you
or
said
just-
no to him or something, like it wasn't like a regular child where you could say, okay, sit in timeout. He wouldn't sit. He refused. He would throw things. He was just from the very beginning very agitated all the time.
So obviously, you must have realized that this wasn't quite, I don't want to use the word normal, but not typical behavior
Yes.
of, his age, and what did you do about it?
I begged the pediatricians for help. So he was only like 14 months old when we decided to move here to Colorado.
Okay.
So when we got here, I had a doctor. My health insurance made it very limited who I could go see. So this pediatrician, she would say, I'd say, no, he's doing these really extreme tantrums, and she'd say, oh well, it's maybe terrible twos. And then she said, well, sometimes terrible twos last into 3s or even 4s. I was like, okay, I already had a child. I mean, I'm glad I already had a child.
Yeah, no
because
kidding.
I was like, okay, well, this one never did anything like
Yeah,
that.
you had something to compare it
Right,
to.
and we have friends who have kids, and none of their kids do this. And she said, yeah, well, I still think it's within the normal range. Here, why don't you go take a parenting class?
Oh.
So, yeah, there was a lot of that. I mean, there was so much judgment from the beginning.
Yeah.
Of if your kid throws a tantrum at Target, it's obviously something you're doing wrong.
It's
as
your
a
fault.
parent. Yeah. So it was really hard. And as he got bigger, the tantrums got more fierce and he got more scary.
Well, he's a strong boy. I mean,
Yeah. Well, and when he's 2, you can drag him out of Target. When he's
Right.
8, you really can't.
No.
And then, people nowadays, they get out their phone and they
That's
start
right.
videotaping. So I'm thankful I never ended up on the news, but
oh, jeez.
yeah, and we had tried everything. Like I begged for a a child psychologist. They finally sent me to the psychiatric department at the health insurance company. And this
So
guy,
you knew you were getting the best care possible.
yeah, we went in for this appointment and they had some toys in the office, and Maddox would pick up the toys and drop them, and then he would like rip a page in a book and he would throw something, and he was just flitting all over the place. Nothing held his interest. And the doctor says after about 5 minutes, well, clearly he has ADHD. Here's
Oh.
some medicine that will
that's
help.
it. Isn't he a fast diagnostician?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, and I was
pretty
so
thorough
and I-
exam there.
I was so desperate at that point. I was like, okay, well, we'll try the medicine. Maybe that'll help. Because I didn't know any better. I mean,
Right.
people always say, well, why would you medicate your child? Because every day was hard, and I
yeah.
didn't know what else to do.
I'm kind of guessing the people that would say that were never in a situation that you were in.
Exactly.
And it's so easy to sit there in that ivory tower and pass judgment on somebody else until they've gone through it.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he gave him medicine. Well, what we didn't know is he didn't have ADHD. So ADHD meds actually made his mood issues worse.
Oh, dear.
So that he got angrier on ADHD meds. And then they tried different meds. And then when he was probably maybe 6 or 7, they decided, well, no, he's bipolar. So here's some bipolar meds.
Oh my goodness.
So, and in the meantime, like every time we would wean off a drug that wasn't working, I would say, okay, we're not going to do drugs. Let's go see a nutritionist. And we tried nutrition, and that didn't work either. And then we tried homeopathy, and they gave all natural drugs or whatever they were, and those didn't work either. We tried neurofeedback, which is very expensive, where you watch the little thing on the computer and it supposedly trains your brain to calm down. Didn't work. I think we did several rounds of that. He thought it was fun because it looked like a video game.
Right.
But it didn't help.
So at this point, you've invested an incredible amount of energy, time, emotions, stress, gone through the gambit of a variety of different medical professionals, and I'm saying that with air quotes around the experts, and you're at your wit's end, and your child is not making any progress.
Right. And as soon as he was old enough to talk, I mean, when he was young, they would just send us either to family therapy, where they basically gave us parenting tips, or parenting classes, or they said, take a love and logic class. Well, that didn't work on him either.
I mean, that's just so demeaning and degrading to a parent.
It is, especially when I have one that's perfectly well behaved.
Yeah.
So, why am I doing well with this kid, but this one's so screwed up? Like, how am I being different with these two children?
Why is it my fault?
Exactly. And even family. I mean, we got judgments from family as well. And they were like, oh, well, you need to try giving him a timeout every once in a while. Or you need to smack him on the butt. And,
oh, God, that would really work.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and then we did try therapy. As soon as he was, I think, 6, we started, there was a thing called friendship groups. And it was basically group therapy for little kids. And they taught anger management techniques. He was so good at knowing in the class, he knew all the answers. He knew exactly what to do. But in the moment when he was angry, he couldn't get there. And I would say, don't forget, Miss Lisa said, punch the pillow. Shut up, Mom! And he'd throw things at me. And, he got to a point where he was older and he was like kicking holes in the wall or like punching the door. He one time was in a timeout in his room, and he actually took the pictures off the wall and smashed them on the ground, and there was glass everywhere. Throwing lamps, throwing everything. I mean, he was just like a caged animal. He was so angry anytime you said no to him.
Wow. I mean, that's absolutely terrifying.
It is. And, then you have to decide when you're in Target and your child says, can I have this toy? Do you give in, and then all the parents give you the dirty look like, oh, yeah, you can't
say no to your own kid?
Can't say no to your own kid. Or knowing that he's going to throw a huge violent tantrum and probably destroy the store.
And have the police come and drag you off to jail.
Yeah, exactly. So there was one day, he was probably about maybe 6 years old, and he threw this huge tantrum, and he started throwing toys down the aisle. And of course, he wouldn't listen to me. So I went to the next aisle, and I got a Target person. I said, can you just tell him he has to clean that up? The guy goes, sure. And he wouldn't listen. So I finally had to just pick him up and drag him. And I had spent probably an hour filling up my basket of all the stuff we needed. I finally had to just drag him out of the store and leave it all behind. And this happened all the time.
Oh my God. And nobody at that point realized that there was something terribly wrong.
No, I did.
Well, you did. Well, of course. But I mean, none of and here come those air quotes again, the medical professionals or the experts in their field. I mean, if they're experts in child psychology or child rearing or whatever, and they still don't see that there's something wrong here.
Right. But, and we didn't ever, it wasn't until much, much later that we actually got people who understood adoption and that there were some issues that come with adoption. I mean, childhood trauma is huge, and especially before the age of 3, it can really affect the whole rest of your life unless we can do something about it. So That day at Target, though, as I was dragging him out the door, and he's 6, so he's not small. And, and I have another kid, too, who I'm trying to drag out of the store. And this lady stops me, and she says, "You should be ashamed of yourself." She says, "I raised 6 children, and none of them ever acted like that. You should be ashamed of yourself. You are failing as a parent." And I cried the entire way home, and probably like for 8 hours after that. I didn't know what else to do.
I cannot believe that, I can, but that anybody would be that incredibly insensitive and judgmental. And to see, I thought you were going to tell me a story of like, honey, can I help you? Or is there something I can, Yeah, wow.
No, so I have to say, because my first child, my friends called him the Stepford child. He was like that good.
Perfect.
Yeah. The second one taught me to not ever be judgmental of other parents.
Oh, well, there you go.
If I see a mom struggling, I used to have a whole stack of like $5 Starbucks gift cards, and I'd be like, "Oh my God, you're having such a hard day. Here, have a coffee on me." Because I knew how horrible it felt.
Oh, that's awfully sweet of you. So at what point did this turn around?
Oh, it took a long time. There was a day when he was about 9 that I was sound asleep at 3:30 in the morning, and he punched me in the head. And I felt this wham on the side of my head, and I rolled over towards my husband, and I thought, well, maybe he just rolled over and hit me in his sleep. He was facing the other direction, sound asleep. And then I rolled over the other direction, and there's Maddox standing like right next to my face. And I looked at him and I said, did you just hit me? And he said, "Yeah, I did." I said, why? And he said, "Well, you took away my video games." I said, "That was 9 hours ago. Like,
oh my God.
You're still upset about that?" And he said, "Yes, and I hope you die." And I mean, I told my mom that story the next day, and she said, "You need to start locking your room. Like, you can't let him in the middle of the night. He might kill you." And I said, "I can't. He's my child. What if he needs something? I can't just lock the door at night and hope he's okay."
There's those 3 magic words. He's my child.
Right.
And he's a child. No matter how, bad his behavior. I mean, he is still a child.
So he went to middle school, which was not a good idea. I didn't have enough money at that point. I was paying so much for therapy and all these other treatments and all of that stuff, and I kept getting fired from jobs because I had to go when the school calls.
Yeah.
So,
and I guess they were calling a lot, huh?
As he got older, 5th grade was kind of a turning point. He just got worse, and then it was, because up until then it was just at home, because one of the things with reactive attachment disorder, which is his official diagnosis now, is that it's always against the mother. So he would act out against me, but strangers he was usually okay, and he was actually very sweet. And he could be very sweet. So, we never gave up on him because we were like, okay, well, he's not innately bad. He's always has his sweet moments as well.
So when was he diagnosed with the reactive attachment disorder?
It wasn't until, I want to say, 5th grade or 6th grade. We were still going to those friendship groups because the lady who ran them was just a phenomenal person, and she let us go for free a lot of the time because he was such a good leader for all the other kids.
Go figure, huh?
I know. And there was a point when she had an intern who was working for her. He was about 22 or something, and he was a young Hispanic guy who was in the Army, and he was now released from the Army. I forget what that's called.
Discharged?
Discharged, there you go. Yeah, and he was discharged from the Army, and Maddox was totally into the Army back then, and, this is a guy that looked like him, and, was cool and young, and so this guy, Mike, would take him on walks, and they'd kind of do therapy on these walks, or they'd play a game together and do therapy that way. And because he was an intern, he was like super cheap. So he's the one that one day I came to pick him up after the therapy was over, and he said, have you guys considered reactive attachment disorder? And I said, I've heard of it, but I don't really know anything about it. And he said, I'm going to email you some articles. I want you to read them and see if this is what you think is going on at home. And sure enough, like it fit him to a T.
Textbook.
Yeah, exactly. And I was like, okay, now we know what we're dealing with, but what do we do about it? And so I called some therapists that said they did some adoption work, and, you know, he went to some therapy where they did play therapy, and he had to, every single one of us had to be an animal, and he had like perfect descriptions of why mom is a giraffe and dad is I forget what dad was, a lion maybe, I don't know. But yeah, so he had perfect descriptions, but she still didn't get to the anger problem.
Right.
And we couldn't figure out what was going on. In the meantime, he went to middle school. Middle school was really hard because now it's big and there's kids hustle and bustle, and he has to move from classroom to classroom, and he can't just get to know one teacher.
Oh.
So he just kind of fell apart in middle school, and I got calls all the time in middle school. And it was second semester of middle school that he got really angry one day, and he was doing a group project, and the teacher said, him and his friend decided this is what our project is going to be. And then there was a third kid in their group who was kind of a bully. And he said, no, this is what our project is going to be. And he went and told the teacher. And then the teacher said, oh, well, you can go with Billy's idea. And Maddox got really upset because he did not like people changing the rules, and he didn't like things that were unfair. So he grabbed a scissor.
Oh, dear.
And not in a threatening way. He just grabbed, like if you're going to run with scissors, that's how he was holding the scissor.
Yeah.
Like he wasn't aiming at anybody.
Yeah, he wasn't holding it
But he just held it in his fist, and he had this angry look on his face, and the teacher flipped out, called the resource officer. They had to clear the room. I had to drop everything and get to the school, and, you know, he's sitting in the office, and, you know, they said this can't keep happening. And I said, well, I don't know what else to do. And we really
I mean, did
struggled.
they give you any ideas? Did they give you any support?
No.
It was just like,
no, and I
this
said,
can't keep happening. You're on your
right.
own.
Well, kind of. And in the meantime, I was like, okay, well, I can't homeschool him because he's worse at home than he does at school. And I can't send him to this school, and I can't afford to send him to private school. And I have a job, so I can't drive him to some other school every day and pick him up every day at 2:30 or whatever. I mean, I have a real job.
Well, you had one.
Yeah.
You had several.
I had several. But yeah, it made it really hard. So they said, well, we have an idea. So there is a school in Littleton that takes kids who have behavioral and social issues. We ended up going there for an interview. And I was so mad at the time because I was like, okay, well, the public school just doesn't know what to do with them, so they're sending them off to where the bad kids go. And I was pissed off. So we went for this interview, and it was the most wonderful place.
So you weren't pissed off anymore.
Well, I tried to hate it. I really did. But the principal was the sweetest thing in the world. And she said, you know what? This is a school of choice. If Maddox does not want to go here, I don't care if you want him to go here, he won't go here. She said, my job is to convince him that this is the place to go. And what was awesome is it was all hands-on learning. Like they did field trips, and they were outside in the garden, and they were, you know.
So they weren't cooped up in a classroom.
No.
Sit down, shut up, and learn.
Right. And his class was only like, you know, between 6 and 10 kids.
Oh, wow.
So he got really good one-on-one attention. It was a very nice place. He ended up having an issue at that school as well. What? And that one, the police officer actually handcuffed him and put him in the back of a squad car and took him off to the juvenile assessment center.
Oh, God.
And I was not allowed to pay. This happened at noon. They called me. My husband.
So you were at work?
No, actually, I had just lost that job.
Okay.
So I was trying to start my own business, and I was in a meeting with some people that I was going to eventually work with, and I kept noticing my phone was blowing up. And
which is one of the reasons why I see you always have your phone with you.
Yeah.
There is a
reason. My phone
reason.
was blowing up.
Yeah.
And I was like, what is going on? So I finally stepped out of the room, and I called my husband. He goes, we've all been calling you. He goes, you need to go get Maddox. I said, where is he? He says, oh, he's at the Juvenile Assessment Center. I said, what? And he sort of tells me the story. He goes, I don't know what happened, but
So where was he? He was at work? Or?
He was at work, yeah. And he says, you have to go take care of this. So I called the Juvenile Assessment Center, and they said, well, you're not allowed to pick him up till 6 o'clock. Now, this is noon. So I'm like, 6 hours.
So 6 hours you had to deal with that.
Why can't
you can't go and get him?
Yeah, why can't I go get him? And they said, well, we need to find out what's going on at home. So then now I'm panicking, thinking they're going to take my children away. They're going to think I beat him or something. But I had no idea, because he also tended to lie. So I was I have no idea what he's going to say to these people. I don't know what to expect. Landry ended up coming with me. And
so how was Landry with all of this and some of these behavioral issues? I mean, it had to have been hard on him too, because you're going through this as a family.
He's super mature for his age, and he was always kind of a therapist. So he would usually be the middleman trying to talk Maddox off the ledge. But there were times when Maddox would come after me, like with a knife or... And Landry would tackle him and try to, help out. And so the kid went through so much more than any kid should. But he came with me to pick up Maddox at the Juvenile Assessment Center, and it was a scary place. I mean, you're surrounded by police officers, and you see like people in orange jumpsuits walking around, and you're like, holy crap, this is serious.
Oh God. And they're all juveniles.
Yeah. Well, it's connected to the actual prison, so you can.
Oh, lovely.
Yeah, you can kind of look over and see the people in the actual prison in the cafeteria.
God.
So. Yeah. So anyway, we got there, and he was in a special assessment room. So we walked down these really sterile hallways with like doors that lock behind you. And we finally got to this little room, and the lady says, okay, well, Landry's going to have to stay here. You come back with me. And I sit down. I have no idea what to expect.
And your husband isn't with you?
No. And she says... Okay, so we've been questioning him all afternoon. She says, he's adopted, right? And I said, yeah. She says, your mom? I said, yeah. She says, we've decided he has reactive attachment disorder. I said, no shit. What am I supposed to do about it? And she says, we have a list of therapists we can recommend. And I said, okay.
Here we go again.
I said, I've seen so many therapists. Most of them don't do anything. I said... I need to get to the actual root of the problem. I don't know how to fix this. And there was a girl there, an intern. She pokes her head in the door and she goes, excuse me, I have an idea. I was like, I'll take any ideas. What do you have for me? And she says, well, one of my friends did an internship in Evergreen with this guy who's a world-renowned specialist in reactive attachment disorder. She goes, do you want me to text her and get the phone number? And I was like, yes, please. So I called and left a message for this guy, and he called me the next day, and it was as if he had been in our house. Like, it was amazing. He said, well, is he doing this, and is he doing that, and is he doing this? And so we came upon, yes, indeed, I can help you. So
did you cry when you heard those words?
Oh my God, yes. And I just felt so comfortable with him. He's a little short Jewish man that sounds just like Bernie Sanders. We just loved him. And so he said, well, I have this family intensive therapy we can do. He said, it's not cheap, and it's probably not going to be covered by insurance, and you need to pay for it up front. It was like $13,000. He said, but he said, normally, I have people that come in from Europe and Asia to do this therapy. He said, I normally have a 6 to 9 month waiting period. He goes, I just had a family from Indiana that canceled. He goes, I have a spot open in 2 weeks. He goes, do you want it? I said, hell yeah. So no matter what, I said, we'll figure out the money situation. So we came up with the money. We paid him his check, and we got ready to go to this. So it was 2 weeks, 4 hours a day, 5 days a week, all 4 of us with 4 therapists.
Oh my God.
And honestly, it was the best money we ever spent. And it was the turning point for how he's doing now. So he's doing amazing right now.
Oh, I'm so glad. Now, how old is he?
He's going to be 15 in April. He's in
He's
the
a
band.
good-looking kid, too.
He is, and he plays the tuba and in 4 bands at school,
Oh, my
and he
goodness.
plays the bass trombone in the jazz band.
Oh,
And
my
he's very
God.
musical. He's got decent grades. He's now got a nerdy group of friends he hangs out with at the mall.
So would you say that he acts like your typical 15-year-old
yes,
boy?
yes. Would I say he's perfect? No.
Well, who
Because
is?
he's a 14-year-old boy, but
Right.
but he's a normal 14-year-old boy now, so it's amazing.
That is amazing. Does he remember those days?
Oh, yeah.
How does he feel about it? Does he talk about it, or does he apologize? Or
He
does
feels
he feel like,
he
so
feels
good?
terrible about
Aw.
it, and he wishes he could go back and redo everything, but we just didn't know back then.
Yeah. Well, you knew. Mm-hmm. You just couldn't get the help and the support that you needed.
Right. I think our mental health system is just so screwed up.
Well, there's a real jewel or a little pearl of wisdom there. You know, one thing that people can get out of this podcast.
Yeah.
It's like it really is. But as we were talking about this, because when we met for coffee a couple of weeks ago, and I said, I think I wanted to call this podcast like the art of resilience.
Oh, yeah.
Because, it's amazing. But then I was thinking, I don't know. I think it's unconditional love.
It's a little of both.
Well, and then there was another thing that I thought of, we would talk about a lot in my martial arts training, patience and perseverance. It's the character of Nin. And you truly just are the picture of patience and perseverance. And I can't imagine how you got through this. And, to have that kind of dedication.
Yeah, I wasn't always calm.
Well, of course not. I never said that, did I?
Yeah, but I really never gave up. I knew there had to be somebody out there that would help us. I just couldn't figure out what it was. And I have 2 master's degrees, so I'm really into research. So
Right.
I would just keep researching and looking for help.
So what would you say then to parents who are going through something like this?
I especially if it's a baby that's adopted, agencies need to do a better job of educating you on what to look for, because now that we go back and look, like, there were a lot of signs that he had attachment issues, and we didn't know that, so we didn't know what to look for. And then apparently so many of the doctors and therapists didn't really know much about adoption or reactive attachment disorders. So
Just out of curiosity, did you ever go back to some of those people that said, oh, it's the terrible twos, even though he's 4, 5, 10, and just say, hey, look, you might want to keep an eye open for something called, reactive attachment disorder?
I didn't, but I should. I don't know if I even have all the doctors written down that we
Well,
dealt
I'm sure
with.
I'm sure you probably don't even want to remember them.
No.
But so with all of this incredible information that you have going through this experience, you are writing a book.
I am.
That's really exciting.
Yay.
So I think that you can not only just help parents and educate them, you can help educate, the healthcare providers. I mean, it's going to be a book about your experience, your memoirs.
Yep. I'm pretty excited about it. And, it actually flowed out really quickly. Somebody told me I wrote a record book or something like in record time. And I said, well, I lived it for 12 years before we got to a place of peace.
Yeah.
I said, so I have told those stories over and over again at every doctor's appointment, every therapy appointment. Every time we start over with a new therapist, we have to tell the same stories over and over again. So it just really flowed out quickly.
Wow. So when are you expecting it to be published?
I'm hoping by summer.
That's actually really quick.
It is really quick, but we are very entrenched in heritage camps for adoptive families.
Okay, so tell us a little bit about that.
Okay, so heritage camps have, I believe, 11 different camps that are specifically designed for adoptive families. Each one has, like, we go to Latin American Heritage Camp because ours celebrates the Latin American culture. So most of the kids are adopted from Mexico, Guatemala, Colombia, Peru, different South American or Central American countries. But there's one for Russia and Eastern Europe. There's a couple for China because China had a lot.
Right.
And there's different Asian countries. So yeah, each one has like a cultural piece. So like I learn how to cook Latin American foods. We learn Latin American dance. There's classes for the parents, and then each of the kids are in age appropriate groups. Learning about their culture. They're doing fun things, but they also have something called Heart Talks, and it's HE and then capital ART. So it's like art therapy, based on like skin color and, you know, the adoption issues and things like that. As they get older, they do, you know, more in-depth things. When they're little, they do like handprints with different colors and talk about skin color. As we got older, there was an attorney there that taught our teenagers how to get pulled over by the police.
Oh, how to respond, you mean?
How to respond if you're driving while brown. And so that was really helpful. I actually had an appointment with him. I took the boys so that they could have private one-on-one training with him as well. But
I would think that would be really important for Maddox after that experience of being, you know, hauled off from school in handcuffs.
Yes. It's phenomenal because we learn all the adoption issues that can come up before they actually happen. And we have an extended family of people that we bounce ideas off of. And
so if people wanted to find out more about the heritage camps, I mean, I'll include the
HCAF.org.
HCAF.org. All
yes.
Right.
So I was a director of the camp for many years. I've been a coordinator pretty much since we got started. We've only missed 1 year, and that was the year we did that therapy, I think. But yeah, we still just love our camp.
Okay.
And it's awesome. So, and that's a great tool for people who've adopted as well, because there is one for foster care and U.S. adoptions as well, and they just don't do the cultural piece. But yeah, they really explore the adoption issues. So.
Okay, now I'm going to change gears just a little bit and talk about how you drink wine for a living, because
I do.
You've got a wonderful business that you have, and it's doing really, really well. And when you tell people you drink wine for a living, which I think is really cute, there's so much more, because it is really good wine. I've had it.
Yeah.
And I've bought it, and it's just wonderful. But tell us about the company.
So I work for a company called One Hope, and we are a cause-centric company. So about half our profits go to charity. And each bottle has a charity partner. So our champagne or our sparkling brut goes to a charity called Why Hunger, and every case feeds 12 kids. Our Chardonnay helps women with breast cancer get access to clinical trials. Our Cabernet helps kids with autism. So each one has
And your Pinots?
My Pinots are for puppies. Pinot Grigio, Pinot Noir both go to the ASPCA Pet Adoption Fund, and each case funds a pet adoption. So it's an amazing company, and I keep track of my stats every month. So I can tell you that as of like last month, I've fed 3,200 kids just selling sparkling brut.
Think about that. That is just incredible.
Just me. I know.
I know.
And because of this company is so near and dear to my heart, my goal with this company is to someday make enough money that I can quit my other job or cut back on my other job and start a 501c3 to help families with reactive attachment disorder.
So on that note, why don't you tell us how we can buy your wine and how to get a hold of you?
You can call or text me. 303-877-9237. And you could probably put a link up on the podcast.
I will on the podcast.
Right.
And so do you have a website?
I do.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I will include that on the podcast too, so people can, you have parties, and you can actually designate a party for a specific charity. So
yes,
for those of you who are listening.
All of our wine tastings are also fundraisers. We do a really fun wine education class. I have so many ideas right now for February because it's Girl Scout season. So I do a Girl Scout cookie and wine pairing. We actually have perfectly matched some of our wines to go with specific cookies. No, I did it. I've done it 2 years in a row now, and they're so much fun. I do a Halloween candy pairing. Next month is Oscars. You know, you could do an Oscar party. But we do a little wine education. We try 6 different wines, and then anything, 10% of sales goes back to the charity of choice.
Wow, that's wonderful.
In addition to our other charities. So.
That's amazing. So I would like to say, hey, what are you planning, to do next or whatever, but we already know about your book and we know about your wine, so buy Gina's wine to help her get that book published and
thank you.
Get that charity started for adoption. And
yes, so the reason we wanted to get the book done so quickly is because of Heritage Camp. I'm hoping to share my story at some of our camps.
So speaking of sharing your story, you're also you're in the very beginning stages of launching a career as a speaker, so you can educate people. This is very exciting.
I am. I just joined Toastmasters and I'm practicing. So.
So I have never done this on the FemiNinja show before, so this is a first. So out of all of my belts that I have, and you're looking at them right now, there's a lot of them, the one that I am the most proud of is the white belt because it represents a new life and having the courage to take the first steps. So, hang on 1 second. I was ill prepared, but I would like to present you with your white belt.
Oh, thank you.
So that
this
just
awesome.
represents, this new life. Oh, and you have a special birthday coming up too. I guess we shouldn't talk about that, but it's a special one.
A big one.
And life begins at that special day, believe me.
Yeah, I keep saying this is like my year of the butterfly because I'm going to have this big transformation and we'll see what happens.
And I love butterflies. There's a whole behind you and over there, and there's some there, and there's one there. Yeah, I love butterflies. I have so many butterfly earrings, but it's transformation. And I mean, what you have done for your son, I mean, I am just in awe. It's wonderful, and you're just an incredible, inspiration, an example to what unconditional love, patience, perseverance, and my God, unlimited resilience can do.
Oh, thank you.
So thank you for coming today.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Is there anything else that you want to leave us with? I mean, you've covered a lot.
I don't think so.
Yeah, you're done. Okay, well, thanks, Gina. Thank you so much for being here today. And to my listeners, thank you so much for listening. I really appreciate you. And please, I welcome your comments, your questions, and connect with Gina because not only does she have a fascinating story, she is a fabulous lady and a really good friend. She's a friend to everybody she meets. So until next time, bye now. And that's a wrap on another episode of the FemiNinja Project. Thank you so much for listening. And remember, be safe, be strong, and until next time, bye now.